none of your business, Oshi. None of your business, Michael.
It's the None of Your Business podcast, hosted by Michael and Oshi.
Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing... I have to find a good word for Hebrew in amazing. How do you say in Hebrew amazing?
Madhim.
Madhim. Yesh li podcast madhim hayom. None of your business. Welcome back, everybody, to another madhim episode of the None of Your Business podcast. We are so excited to be here in Ramat Beit Shemesh. I'm here with two really good friends that I went to first grade with, second grade with, third grade with, fourth grade with, until one of them decided to move to Eretz Yisrael and leave Yeshiva. He went to a different Yeshiva, I think. We're here with, of course, Rabbi Nachman Seltzer. It's so good to be here with you in the Holy Land.
So good to be with you. It's amazing. Great reunion.
Yes, amazing. And, of course, Naftali Zelman, Rabbi Neil Zelman.
There we go. I'm actually a little nervous.
What are you nervous about?
I haven't done this properly. You're like a professional. Rabbi Nachman is world-renowned. You know, everybody knows his names. You know, he's a speaker. He's a writer. He even was a soloist in Miami Boys Choir.
That is true. Could you remind us which song it was that you sang?
Okay, two songs. Min HaShemayim, Ani Mamin.
Stop it. It's Min HaShemayim.
So not the song.
Sure, but I love that song.
But out of the song Ani Mamin on It's Min HaShemayim.
How does it go?
Ani Mamin.
Ve'emunah sheleima.
The low part, that's me. That.
Wow.
Wow.
And then, in Miami Experience number 2.
How'd that go?
Yerushalayim avinu yakish chabra lo yaftov. That song. Anyways.
Wow. You took your talents to making actually a choir yourself around a decade ago, right?
So in 2005, the first album came out.
Wow.
Shira Chadash Boys Choir.
That was more than a decade ago then.
2005 it came out.
Oh, it came out, yeah.
I had it for about 15 years.
Wow.
Maybe it started a little earlier. The first album came out in 2005. So we had it for 15 years. We had 5 albums. We sang on the albums of many, many singers like Shwekey, Lipa, Gabe, Dachs, Baruch Levi, A.K. Pella, Latayev, Yankees Productions. It was like, for a while, it was like every CD had the choir on it, like backing them up. We did a lot of concerts. It was good, but you know they say in Hebrew, "Hayat tov v'tov sha'ya."
It was good. It was good that it was.
So let's go back a little. Let's go. Tell us a little about yourself. Like Simon mentioned.
Catch us up a little bit. It's been around 30, 40 years.
That's it.
What do you want to know? You ask me questions. Like I said, when people call me Bachaduk, ask me specific questions.
Now you're currently living in Eretz Yisrael, Ramat Beit Shemesh. How did you get here? Tell us how you got here.
So I was in Torah Das with you guys till 4th grade. Pesach, my parents put me into Yeshiva. I was in a few other different places until in 9th. At the end of 9th grade, my parents moved to Eretz Yisrael. I was 14. My parents moved to Eretz Yisrael. I was here for a while. Israeli Yeshiva first, Israeli Yeshiva Katana. Then I went to American Yeshiva afterwards. I went back to learn in Lakewood by B'Shai Treff. I came back. I was in the Mir for 15 years. Went to Yisrael Berkowitz. It got by his koilos, Halacha koilo, the Jerusalem koilo, the first 10 over there. And that's the learning part of it.
So by that count, you've been learning for about 75 years of your life already.
When people used to say to me, parents would say, how could I send my kids, let's say, on trips and concerts? And I would be like, listen, what are you worried about? That he's going to miss yeshiva? What we learn for the rest of our lives. We're always going to learn. But these are kind of experiences he's only going to have now. So I would suggest letting him have those experiences now because they build people in a major way and he will always learn. And he'll probably learn better if you let him have these experiences now. And I believe the kids are tremendous experience. I see the kids who came out of the choir, a lot of kids went to the choir, and they're like consistently the best in the yeshiva, and it really did something very, very good for them. So Baruch Hashem, I've let nachas. I'm seeing these boys. A lot of them are married now, getting married, and they're really top boys.
I want you to know, music is a huge part of my life, and I started playing guitar 5 years ago. And I hang out by Reb Shlomo Kalabach and Har Menuchas. I was just there this morning, visiting my...
First 3 years, it was brutal. He only knew like 3 songs. I'm telling you, that playlist just played over and over.
That's true. I do the same Laman Achais, right? I mean, do you play an instrument?
I don't play.
But you sing.
Sing, compose.
Sing and compose, produce.
I never played.
Right. I'd love to play with you one day, some of Shlomo's songs. What are some of your favorite musics? Like what genres do you enjoy in terms of Jewish music? What do you like to listen to?
I like Miami Boys.
Yeah.
Up until a certain point.
Yeah. Do you remember the plays they used to have?
I was in.
You were in one of the plays?
Yeah. On the road to Yerushalayim.
Mensch?
Be a mensch.
Be a
I
mensch?
was in it. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. You turned out to be pretty big mensch over there, Nachman. I got to tell you, from,
All for me.
I tried out for Miami Boys Choir, by the way.
Yeah?
Yeah. He said I was too tall and my vocal cords were going to change. And
You tried.
I felt good about that excuse. I was in 8th grade in Torah Das.
No, you came late.
Yeah.
It is pretty cool being in Torah because they didn't allow that growing up, right? In the yeshiva.
Right.
Ari Heidemann was in Miami Boys.
True. But we weren't allowed to be in Miami Boys Choir. Weren't you
I
challenged?
didn't tell the school.
Uh-huh.
I'm stolen when I tried out. Okay, so let's go back. I tried out when I was in 3rd grade in Torah Das.
Wow.
I tried out. And at that time, Yachmil used to, the way he tried out kids, so he tried us out in the Bar Park Y, I remember.
I love the Bar
Sunday
Park Y.
afternoon. I went there a lot.
Yeah, me too. We used to play dodgeball there, I think.
Dodgeball?
Yes.
Flaky, not flaky. And Scott. And then ping pong upstairs afterwards. So he had a piano as a hot day. The fan is blowing. He's a big fan in the Bar Park Y. And so each kid gets, I was 8 years old, 8, 9 maybe. And he hits a note on the piano. And you have to sing la, ding, la. You have to hit the note. I had no idea what he wanted. I didn't understand what he wanted from me. What do you mean hit the note? I had no idea. He wasn't saying sing a song. I didn't know. I didn't get in. He didn't say sing a song. Okay, I didn't get it. So then I was very disappointed because I felt like I didn't have a chance really to show him what I could do. So, okay, what can you do, right? I tried it again when I was 12. I tried it again. This time I knew about this hitting the note thing, but he didn't ask me to do it. He said, sing a song. So I sang a Semach David, and I got it. And then he's like, where were you all this time? I'm like, hello. I tried it when I was 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out then, but it was worth the wait.
It was almost.
By the way, my favorite album of
That
life,
was Sead
Shema. I think it was most of the people our age, their favorite album is going to be one of
But
those.
that was
Every
a huge
Chalamite
change.
trip had that playing.
Every trip.
That was a huge change for Jewish music.
Why?
Sead Shema was like the first song that went viral. It was a hit. Like
The idea of going viral,
like a
right?
kids choir with a song that just went. Everyone was singing it. It was like it came out, and suddenly everyone is singing Sead Shema. Remember, it was the 4th album Miami Boys Choir came out with.
Right.
It wasn't the first album. Then until they didn't have a song that went viral. That song went viral.
Good point.
And suddenly everyone singing Sead Shema. And then when I got that album, it was a record, I think. And then I said, I went back to this farm store. I was looking for every choir album that there was out there. And I bought them all. From Pirchei Yerushalayim to Tzil Zemer to whatever I could get my hands on. And then that's what I eventually tried out for the choir. But that album had great songs. Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelik Mabah. Remember that song? Yameh Kulam Tzadikim V'Yolam Yeshuret. That's a great song. It's off David. On a Bekoyas.
Some of my favorite. Some of my
Which is
favorite.
probably my favorite song, Miami Boys Choir. Kiatahu. You know the song?
Kiatahu.
Great song.
Ah,
HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But falsetto. It's a great song.
I love the plays. I love the choreography. I love the idea that people put their sweat and tears into getting people to come to their concerts, not just coming and singing and making an impact on people's lives.
Production.
I have to ask you, we said the word viral, and I just said the word impact on people's lives. What is the first book that you wrote? I'm just going to jump right into it because, I haven't seen you in so long, but I've seen your name so everywhere I turn. A lecture, a book, something coming out that's heartfelt, telling the proper story. I see your name written everywhere. So I'm so excited to get into this question with you because what was that transition like? What first book or something that happened in your life?
Let's take that back a bit. How did you get into that? How does someone like you who goes from Torah Das to Stalin, moving to Israel, right, suddenly now become a prolific writer, a well-known writer that your books fly off the shelf, you're an eloquent writer. You write very well. It's high quality. How do you transition? How did that happen?
It's just this like I have to say, I think it's just like a natural thing. If a person loves reading, reads a lot, and is naturally good at writing. I was always good at writing. I want creative writing in Torah Das every year. I was good at it. I was like
Mr. Deichmann. I remember Mr. Deichmann.
I thought you bought Mr. Fink his favorite Sunkist can of soda, and that's why you won. You're telling me you had a talent back then too.
Good at it. I remember
it's amazing.
Second grade. I could tell I was very disappointed with one of my teachers because she didn't stop. What I felt as a second grader was godless in a composition. She gave us a composition which was, if I was a leaf. So I wrote, if I was a leaf, I would join the Miami Leafs choir, which I felt was godless as a second grader. She didn't get it. Maybe I don't know why she didn't get it. Maybe she wasn't musical.
Right.
And I was disappointed at her as a second grader for not tapping how great that was. She didn't get it.
Explain it to her now if she's listening.
All right. Why is that great?
Yeah, explain the depth of it.
Because it's creative. It's great because you're imagining Leafs having a choir. It's great because you're a little kid. I was 7 years old and coming up with this type of metaphor.
She didn't appreciate your imagination
She didn't get
as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, it was. Look, that's a good line.
I think what I'm appreciating about you is how you take something complex and you make it simple, and you let that simplicity with your imagination go wild. And I think that's what I've been getting out of researching you. I don't read, by the way, unfortunately, I'm not happy about it. I wish I was able to. Maybe you can give me one of your books that you would recommend I should start reading on. But
if you have a lot of pictures, that's the one he wants.
Thank you. Curious George, preferred. But what would be a book that you would recommend me to read?
Yeah. Incredible.
Why?
Because it's a book that's very interesting.
That's the one on Rabbi Wallace, right?
Yeah.
It's
nonstop action. It reads like a novel, but it's real. It's larger than life. There's so many elements. It's just classic literature. And it has all the elements inside it that you would want to read in a book, and it's real. So you feel like you're really gaining, and it just inspires you. There's so many good elements in it.
How long did it take you to write that book, for example?
It took a while because you saw Rabbi Wallace was a very busy man, and just getting the information.
But if someone wasn't busy, like another typical book, how long does it take?
Let's say a person, let's say 90 seconds with Eli Beer. Eli Beer was very keen to get the book out. So he mapped off 2.5 weeks of his schedule, and I sat with him every day for a few hours when I wasn't teaching, I wasn't learning, and I basically got all the information in 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
And then it took me 3 months to write the book.
That's amazing. How many books have you written until now?
So I published 50 books.
Wow.
And I've written probably about 60 books, but not all of them are out, or some are in the process, and some won't come out because families don't want to publish them.
Interesting.
Some I chose not to put out, whatever, different things. Put out 60 books.
Give me an example of something that you didn't put out or you're not putting out.
So there was a novel I wrote, and it was called The Challenge. And it was about a couple that couldn't have children. And the book was finished. And then I was by my Rebbe's house with Nissen Kaplan, Shlita, and his wife. She passed away, Nissen Kaplan. She was there. She worked for Targum Press. So at that time, I was in Targum Press. So she says to me, "Nu, when are you bringing the new book?" I was like, "Yeah, it's ready. I'm coming in soon." The Rebbe says, "What's the book about?" I told him it's about a couple can't have children and this and that. He says, "Don't put it out." I'm like, "What do you mean, don't put it out?" He's like, "No, you can't put it out. It's too painful. You can't do it." So his wife's like, "What do you mean? Everyone puts out books like this. People put out books about people who can't have children." He says, "Let me ask you a question." He says, "You have an aunt who doesn't have children. Would you?" It was Rabbi Shalevsky's first wife. "Would you bring it to your aunt? Would you bring her this book?" She said, "No." He says, "So why would you say put out a book? You wouldn't bring it to your aunt. Why would you say put out a book if it's going to hurt people?" So okay, fine. So that was the beginning that was chapter 1. Okay, fine. I can't put out. Rabbi saying, I can't put out. What's the point of having a Rebbe if you're not going to list them, right? Okay. So then this goes on and on. I'm like, I called a time. I called this one. I called that one. I called different organizations. And I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, "No, you can put it out." Everyone said, "It's fine. Don't worry. You can put it out." So I say to my Rebbe, this one said, that one said, but everyone says it's fine. He goes, "Yes, but I care about you." He says, "Don't put it out." I'm like, "But Rebbe, I put out, I spent," he's like, "Okay, don't put it out. What do you need it for? What do you need to have someone have a kindness on you? What do you need it for?" I'm like, okay. So then eventually, again, like a year later, I was like, "Come on." He says, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. I have Talmidim who can't have children. We'll give it to them. Let them read it. We'll see what they say." So we gave it to a couple to read. And she says, "Please don't put this book out." She says, if this book was in the living room, like a Shabbos, I wouldn't be able to walk into that room. Don't put it out. It's too raw. It's too real. Don't put it out. So I said, okay, I won't put it out. I didn't put it out. And that's it.
Wow. Wow. What kind of learning experience did that give you, like, through that process?
The main point is you got to listen to your Rebbe. That's the main point.
Right.
As we said a black attitude. If you don't have a Rebbe, anything could happen.
What it's like? What's your connection with Black Attitude?
No connection, but remember when it came out.
I love Black Attitude. Mitch Levy and Josh Stryker. Yeah, of course.
The Force.
Of course. And Greenspan.
One to Harvard, the other to Penn. They put on the tefillin every now and then. The nice big house, white picket fence. Traditional Jews, nothing too intense. Remember that?
Of course. Black Attitude. You remember that.
Oh, Friday in the last little bucket, catch you later. The water ain't hot, so showering I'm not. Okay. So anyways, that was the Nakuda. My Rebbe said no.
Yeah. And that's it. And it's there. It's sitting on
my computer.
It's sitting on your computer. You have like 10 of those types of books.
No, so not like that.
No, but I'm saying that you haven't published or different.
Mainly family memoirs of families who I wrote books, which are a lot of them are great books, and for whatever reason they either didn't get around to it or chose not to do it. Or whatever.
Neil, you were asking about the journey. Let's continue down that path. I like where you were going.
How did you get into that? What was your first book?
The Edge, which is a movie also today with Baruch Perlowitz.
Wow,
you didn't know that?
I mean,
yeah, it's one of the most successful Jewish movies. That launched Perlowitz's career.
Amazing.
That movie launched his career. I believed in him a lot. I felt he had what it takes to become like a real like for our world and maybe further.
Sure.
And he's doing big things. He does real big budget productions today. So I invested in it. I bought him a drone that we could use. Then the first Jewish movie, they used a drone.
Wow.
Underwater camera. We really it was a very cool project. It took us time. But so that was based, but that only came years later. The story started where a guy in Yeshiva in Koila, Bar Berkowitz, told me a story that was real, and I liked the story a lot. I said, I'm going to write a novel based on that story. I just jumped into it.
And that was the first book you wrote?
The first book.
But you went to a press, take me to the business side of things. I'm just curious how that
happened.
Yeah.
So basically, when I was a bacher, you remember Ari Friedman from Torvadas?
I don't.
Okay, so Ari Friedman was a friend of mine. We were together in Yeshiva.
Okay.
And he was related to Rabbi Moshe Dambi. He was the head of Targum Press. Rabbi Moshe Dambi passed away. I went for Shabbos to the Dambi family in Arnof. And Friday night, we're talking, and I told him, I spoke about a lot of the books that Targum Press published over the years. I was familiar with them. And Rabbi Dambi said, if you ever write a book, come to me. So when I wrote my first book, I went to Targum Press. And then Baruch Hashem, they published it. And that was it.
So if someone wants to publish a book, you got to find the press first, right? The company that will actually publish it for you.
Yeah.
And they take the risk in terms of printing, and they go through
it. Depends. Some publishers, most publishers today may ask you to invest
in the book if they don't know you or you don't have a reputation yet.
Art school, it's based on merit. It's really like art school is more if it's a good book. Meaning that's why everyone knows it's an art school book. It's not a vanity press. Other publishers will do books that they don't necessarily believe in because they do, they'll do if you pay for it, they'll put it out. Us doesn't do that.
Wow.
It's there. It's really based on the merit of the book.
You don't have social media, right? You don't have WhatsApp. No. I don't think you even have text because I texted you the other day. You didn't.
But I do have a LinkedIn page.
You have a LinkedIn page. Your communication is through email. How do you know how your books are doing? Do you get reports?
I get numbers.
You get numbers, but you don't get to see what people are seeing out there in the social media world. Like,
I know what's going on.
You get to see what's happening.
What time it is.
You know what time it is.
So I don't know if you realize, he glossed over it quickly, but besides being a writer, you had mentioned that you learn, you're a Rebbe, right?
Yeah.
Right. So your schedule is not just, basically just writing books all day. You have a full daily schedule.
I go to Abeli. I Baruch Hashem as a close to be one of the miyastim of Abeli Stefanski's Dafyei Mishir. And so that's a big close.
How's that? Seems like a great experience.
I'm guessing you're going to write a book about him one day.
Maybe. It's a possibility.
Neil, I like that idea, by the way.
I'm thinking
someone should write a book about him.
I'm already thinking that it's in progress.
Ooh, it's not. It's not.
We talked about it many times. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have to cut off for a second and ask this question because we're holding there right there. You want to write a book about someone, right? Rabbi Stefanski, for example. What do you need to write that book? How do you?
I would have to sit down with him and I know, first of all, I know pretty much all the stories by now. I spent a lot of time with him.
Sure.
Like Shabbos and shul. He sat next to me on my bench in Ramat Bet Shemesh. He moved to Eretz Yisrael. He sat next to me in my shul. So So I know him very well.
Right.
And I know a lot of his stories. I know a lot of his...
So that makes the process
But I
easier.
would have to sit with him and really go through his whole life. And then interview a lot of the people that their lives were changed because of the shir, like Yossi Klein, and like Mark Ashkenazi, and Uncle Phil, and Fischel from Baltimore, and maybe Yakov Citron, and a lot of people whose lives were changed. And the guys who helped, like Avi Kamiatsky, fixed. And just, there's so many people. And the main stories, I would have to get those stories also, because that's part of the story.
So part of your writing a book is doing that research and interviewing a lot of those people.
It would be a big project. It wouldn't just be sitting with one person, because there's so many people that were impacted by MDY, and it would be a huge project. So we'll see what happens. We'll see.
You're saying it wouldn't be 8 minutes.
This would be like, it would be like 98, a lot, 90 days, But it's a big project. So we'll see what happens with that.
I like that idea.
It's been under discussion. We'll see.
Interesting. So you're now living in Eretz Yisrael for now, what is it, 40?
15 or 46, so.
It's about 40 years, close to 40 years. 35 years.
Yeah.
Right? How has that experience been like?
Great. Eretz Yisrael, best. I give a mashal. Living in America is like living in black and white. Living in Eretz Yisrael is like living in color. That's the difference. You know what I mean? It's not about work here. People do work sometimes, but that's not the focus of their lives. Plenty of people feel good about themselves in Eretz Yisrael and don't work at all. It's not about money here. It's not how you're measured. It's just a different experience.
I want you to know that we just experienced this ourselves. We were told about the best falafel in Israel. You know, how many times have people told you the best one? Yeah, of course. Yeah, you have yours.
Yeah.
He has his. Which one is yours? Which one is yours?
What did they tell you?
Around the corner from your apartment, that Ethiopian, that Taimani guy.
The Taimani falafel on...
Then Yakov?
No, that's another person. That's Heshi's favorite.
On Chovanavir.
Chovanavir.
There's another favorite.
Near the corner? Where is it?
There's this Taimani guy.
There's another favorite.
He's some rabbi from the old time.
Great story just happened to us. Another favorite that's in the Bukharian Shuk. A guy who's been around for, I think his father started it. Been around before the country's been around.
You know what the secret of his oil, of his thing is?
What is it?
Changes the oil.
That's the secret. I believe that. Department of Health doesn't have entrance to that store. And we're in that falafel store, and we're 5 American people from Muncie, some from Queens, some from Lakewood, right? And we're all coming, and we're hungry. And it's 2 PM, and we call some of our friends in America, and we're saying, what's the name of that store that you said has the best falafel in Yerushalayim? The guy says, oh, you got to go to the shuk over there, the Bukharian shuk in that area. And he points us in the direction. And we're excited, and we start walking there. We go into the falafel store, and the guy just made a beautiful falafel, and he's about to hand it to someone. And we say, Shalom, we want 5 falafels, please. He goes, I'm finished. We're like, what do you mean you finished? It's 2:30. What do you mean you finished? He goes, Zehu, slicha, and I'm not selling any more falafel. We say, one guy pulls out $100, and he says, $100. He goes, you could have $1 million. I'm not making falafel. Every morning I come with a specific amount. When I finish this amount, I go home and I learn and I be with my family. Every day, this guy tells us he makes the same exact amount of falafel that he needs to have parnasa, to have enough of a living for him and his family. And there is no way for him to make more falafel. So my friend turns to the guy that just bought a falafel for 20 shekel, and he gave him $100 for that falafel. And the owner was so overwhelmed with this. He didn't know what to do with himself. First, we were overwhelmed with his response. And now he's going crazy saying, you're going to pay $100 for that falafel? And the guy didn't know what to do. The guy was buying it because he needs the money. And he's like, wow, it's a lot of money. Ends up, the guy felt so good about the idea that we were willing to give money to a guy. He ended up making us more falafel. And we all sat down and had falafel. We had the best time. And I have to tell you, the best falafel. I'm kidding. You know it is. But I agree with you. The idea of seeing color. Look, Neil and I were in Israel together, when we were teenagers. We experienced the color. And when we're here, we experience the color too. And it's a beautiful thing. And, you sort of took that color and it radiates. You see it shining, right? I look at you and I see almost the colors of a rainbow coming out of you. And I see that holiness and that beauty. And I have to tell you something that, yes, we had our fun in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, but coming to see someone so many years later and seeing the growth and feeling that energy, knowing that you have eliminated social media completely from your life, even though you're in a world that helps in a way with social media, but it doesn't, make or break who you are. You're very adamant about your values. And I think that's something also that I think that the colors that shine in Israel is that you see that people have values and they put their values.
Look, if we're honest, we all know that we don't really need social media. It's really more of a distraction than a help, honestly. It's really a distraction. It distracts people from life. I believe in quality of life over, the benefits of the social media.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
That's simple.
What would you tell someone that's thinking about, they're married, they have kids, or they don't even have children yet, they're thinking about it, they want to come here, but they constantly hear how hard it is, it's difficult, it's not easy. Whatever it is, whether it's parnasa.
But that's not true today. There's so many rich people in Eretz Yisrael. So many. There's so much money here.
You're saying the challenge is not there.
It's not what it was. Definitely. Look, when I was little, you had to go to America and buy things they didn't have. What don't you have here?
You're saying I don't have to bring in tuna fish anymore?
You might have to bring Entenmann's donuts.
Think about it. People didn't used to live in nice houses. People live in nice houses. There are nice houses. Ramat B'Shemesh, many nice homes, right? Yerushalayim, many nice homes. You can live in a beautiful house and you can learn Torah and you can have a parnasa and you can work in America or work today anywhere in the world. I think COVID taught us that you don't have to be somewhere. You could be anywhere. And I learned a lot of things in COVID. I learned that I could leave my old neighborhood that I lived for 21 years and move somewhere else because it's not about your neighbors or your friends. It's about your family.
Does anything that happen, Neil, I like your question because, it's something that I get a lot about, moving to Israel, making aliyah. My daughter asks me all the time. I think starting off a career is difficult.
Start off when you're young.
Yeah.
It's different than moving when your kids are older.
Yeah.
And nobody says it's a good idea to move when your kids are older.
Right.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Move when your kids are young, or move later. Don't move when they're, once they're 8 years old. That's the.
Well, that's I think the answer to your question, what you were asking, Neil.
But if you want to start in it, so why not go for it? Again, the nakuda is like this: if you want to live here and you want it to work, you need already to be machnir yourself to be part of the system. Don't come here with your American ideas and be like, I don't agree with the school. You want to get kids to be happy. Then that means you need to support the system. They need to send them to regular Israeli schools and be like, yes, I buy into this. And then they'll buy into it because you buy into it. So you have to, if you want that, so you need to actually buy into it.
So you're saying I shouldn't wait until like evergreen or pomegranate open up in Israel.
But you don't need that anymore.
That is true.
You have a place called Hating in Mashar. It's spelled.
You know how many beautiful stores we have here in Mapachavish? Kiddush and the Krauses.
What do you do about the challenge with the army? In terms of your children that have to serve in the army.
If they're in yeshiva, they get a patur.
It happens.
They get pushed up.
Is that a challenge today? Is that something
if you're actually learning in yeshiva, then it's not a challenge. It's a challenge if you're not a yeshiva, maybe. But if you're not a yeshiva, then you're not a yeshiva. I'm talking about someone in yeshiva will not have a hard time not being in the army.
Right.
But if you're not a yeshiva,
you should go to the army.
I'm not getting into that. I'm saying if you're not a yeshiva, that's a different situation. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely makes sense. You ever go into Yerushalayim? You travel back and forth. Oh, you teach in Yerushalayim?
Yeah.
What kind of age group do you teach?
In seminaries, a bunch of seminaries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Say I'm there at least twice a week.
You may have spoken in Tiferet, which is my daughter's seminary. Oh, you teach in Tiferet?
Yeah, every Thursday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So she must have.
Now?
No, she was there. She's now married. She's now married and lives in Jerusalem. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's a very impactful time when people are in seminary and yeshiva, right? I'm saying people who are, being sort of like, I've heard from my friends, I have some friends in America that are frustrated by it, actually, by the idea that their kids come back home and they don't want to come back home. And they say, I want to live in Israel. I want to stay in Israel. There are parents that say, no, you got to come first back to New York. You got to first go through college and then you can think about it.
Look, I'm not into college in the first place. He's talking to the wrong person. I believe going to college is unless you're going for a specific career, like you're a lawyer or a doctor, then I believe it's really a waste of time. And especially what we see on college campuses today, they're not a place for anyone to be. Maybe Torah college. I guess if you go to college, at least go to a from college.
Right.
But if you're going to a Geisha college, to an Ivy League college, It's the opposite of an education. It's a terrible place to be. Anti-Semitism, and the heads of colleges can't even say that it's wrong they can't even stand up for the most obvious. No, it's just terrible.
Now it's poison Ivy League. It was a joke.
Oh my gosh. But Neil has amazing puns. Sometimes they're in his head and sometimes they come out, and when they come out, they're good.
So yeah, college is like, what do you do? You send the kid to college for what? For 4 years to get what? What do they get out of it? 1 week in business actually will teach them more than 4 years in business school.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. It is a good point.
It's true.
There is one thing that I will say that college does give, I think, in my opinion, is that it creates, especially, like you said, if you go to one of these Jewish colleges, it gives you the ability to create a network within the business world, which, sometimes helps people. But there are people, it could be, what else bothers you?
It doesn't bother me. I'm just telling you, it's not like I have a pet peeve.
No. I'm just saying.
I just don't think I think it's a complete con.
Yeah.
I think it's a con that America somehow managed to brainwash people that you have to send your kids to college. It's a con. I see them don't. They make way more money than people go to college. So you make a panus, ich make business. Ich mach business. You make way more money.
Right. They're doing something right. That's for sure.
It's called being smart, thinking out of the box, and understanding business. That's it's just a way.
Our life teaches us. Learning Gemara enhances your brain.
Correct.
And your thinking, your thought process. That doesn't necessarily require you to go to college for you to expand your understanding and knowledge.
So college stifles you. It stifles you. One of the rules in writing, for what I understand, I looked this up. It said, if it is not to go to a course in writing, because they will stifle the unique voice. They will give you the rules. But it's much better to have a unique voice that comes from inside you, which you're doing on your own without somebody telling you how to think or how to talk or how to...
I'm curious, by the way, did anyone ever want to write a book about you?
Stop.
No, seriously, I'm curious. Did anyone ever ask you?
My standard answer to when people say, when are they going to write a book about you? I say, I'm not interested. I just know interesting.
Okay, but let's say someone was to write a book about you. Who would it be?
Why would they write a book about?
Who would you be honored?
You want
Yes.
author to be.
Why would somebody write a book?
Because they
write books about people. It's not me. I just write books about people.
So you have a pretty, busy schedule, right? You have a lot going on. You have the books, you have the teaching.
Okay.
Is there another venture? Is there something that you're thinking, you're itching to do, that you're thinking
I'm starting
about?
something right now.
Ooh.
I don't know what's going to happen.
So,
I can't. It has.
Please, I think don't tell me you're opening up a seltzer company.
Can I tell you something funny?
the Rabbi Nachman Seltzer company.
There we go. We're on some.
grandfather-
I want a piece of this action over here. I'm just telling you right now. You know what I'm saying?
Do you?
Yeah.
Sure. You don't know where I'm going.
He might need an investment first.
My grandfather was a seltzer man.
Stop it.
Old-fashioned seltzer.
Are the blue bottles?
Yes. But that was my mother's father. And then his daughter went and married someone named Seltzer. How do you like that?
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that?
Wow.
Grandpa Daddy.
Wow. So, Neil, I like your question. And by the way, I'm loving you as a partner in the None of Your Business podcast. And I'm going to make a quick plug because...
You've never let me speak this much before.
Something I've learned over the past 5 years of eliminating social media from my life is to learn to listen to people, to be honest. It's something that I've been working on. And
So can I get something off my chest? No, I'm just kidding.
Please do. I have to just make a quick mention because without the good people and good partners and the good family over at Prime Source, none of this can be possible. So thank you again, Prime Source, for helping sponsor the None of Your Business podcast. Neil, having you as a co-host, as a guest, together with my guest, Rabbi Nachman, is making me so happy here right now. Especially Ushi is going to watch this and is going to be like, oh my God, Neil is pretty good at this. I want him to get nervous. So that's a good thing. But I like your question where you're going with it. So what is the new project, Neil? Great question.
So just look, it's really in its opening stages. The first thing I did of the project is a universal type of children's. It's universal for children, not just for Jewish children. It's something that a lot of books, it's media, but it's like creating a whole new set of characters, and it just basically hashkafically beseder. So, because there's a whole world out there of people who do not trust the media, cannot find books for their children, have a very hard time letting their kids watch anything because they'll even if they're not Jewish, they don't want the kids exposed to woke ideology. So basically, I'm in the process of creating and something very, very beautiful, which is story. It's great stories, but it's all, again, it's not Jewish, but that's the idea behind it. Which has potential to be actually very, very big, and we'll see where it goes. But
Actually pretty interesting. I could see how something like that is interesting to not only the Frum population, but obviously broader than that fully understand that
a lot
confusing, the children is not a healthy.
There's a lot of people who are trying to build alternatives to Disney today. Ben Shapiro's doing it, and there's a lot of people that are doing it, and so it's a very interesting thing, and we're in the process of.
I have to tell you, when my kids were younger, I used the website called commonsensemedia.com. And before I let them watch a movie or read a book, I used to go there. It's terrible how it would describe everything that's not rated G that goes on in the show or the movie. And then after a while, you notice that there is nothing that's entertaining and that's educating and that's growth oriented that's rated G. It just doesn't exist. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for it yet?
I don't want to. See, I'm not.
No, because we can strategize here.
No, so I'll tell you what it is. Because I have a name for it. Yeah, I have name, characters.
Oh, wow.
Pitch, deck, books. I have a lot.
Beautiful.
We have a lot of it. We're well into it. But I'm not going to be. My name is not going to be on it because it's not for the Frum world.
Got it.
So it's not going to be something which I'm publicly in.
This can be a pseudonym.
Yeah, for the first time.
Like it.
Like that.
What would be a name for him that you would pick?
Nick Bubbly.
I'm liking this. You can't. He can't let go of the whole Seltzer
It's
thing.
actually funny.
I told you there's a lot of things going on.
I was in Dor Goldie. I was a counselor in Dor Goldie, and Donnie Stown, who's a rabbi today, he used to call me Spritz. What's up, Spritz? Hey, Spritz. That's a compliment.
Donnie Stow is a good friend of mine, by the way, and I also was in Dor Golding, so we may have bumped heads or
99, 2000.
No, before. Yeah. But those were good experiences.
Alex Gold.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I'm sure you get pitch stories all the time, and especially your I think your last book that came out. What was it? After the October.
That was one of the last books.
I just have to mention, I did not read it because, like I mentioned earlier, but I get such great stories that people tell me, because I always ask people to tell me the stories that they read, and very impactful stuff, and amazing. The feedback, it was amazing, and it's very difficult. When we're going in Jerusalem now, when we're going around and we're seeing things that are happening, it's very difficult to describe to people what we're seeing and what we're feeling. And, I know that you did a great job in doing that.
Yes,
so
I can only imagine that you've had stories come to you, like some wild stories that you haven't put down pen to paper yet.
Yes.
Over the last, we were here, actually, both of us, we were here during October 7th. We were here that day. And over the last year, we've come back many times. And each time we come back, we say, maybe we're not, maybe we're just taking away from what they're doing, their focus. And we realize every time we hear and we see a soldier, we see a family member, we see just an average Israeli, they're so happy to see us. They get chizuk from us coming here and showing our appreciation, our support, showing that we're not afraid. And it actually gives us chizuk. Just last night, soldiers are hugging us after they're coming back from Lebanon after spending a month and seeing atrocities, right? And they're hugging us and they're saying thank you. And meanwhile, we're walking away crying, after they're, so thankful for us being there. Is there a story that you heard or that you haven't written about, or maybe that you never would, only just because it's raw, it's real, it's painful, something that's but is really ultimately inspirational, something that inspires you?
So October 7th?
It could be anything. It could be anything at all.
There was a story years ago that I heard, which I wrote, but I never published it because it was way too hard. It was terrible.
Do you mind sharing that?
Crazy story. In a nutshell, because it is a very crazy story. But basically the idea of the story was, there was this kid that she was born into a normal family. And from the time she was little, like, her parents treated her terribly, as opposed to all the rest of the kids. They made her sleep in the basement, and then when she got older, they married her off to an alcoholic, and then then he left her, and then they gave her a get, and her kids left her, and then, like, it was like a terrible, terrible story of a person who just had the worst life in the world, and she didn't know why. Like, she wasn't a bad person, right? So why Like, why did her parents treat her this way? Why did her husband leave her? Why did her kids say we don't want anything to do with you and go back to her family and not? And she didn't know why. And eventually she went to a makubal, who was actually pretty famous. And she asked him, she told him the story. She's like, what's going on over here? And he said, and he did a sheilas cholon to try to understand. And he came back to her and he's like, listen, he says, whatever, 100 years ago, there was a family that lived in a certain place, and they were a beautiful family, a from family. And they had this kid who just one day went off and married a guy. And she was very happy with her husband, and she had kids, beautiful family, and kids were baptized in the church, and she never did tshuva, and she died happy. She died happy, She never did tshuva. And her parents taught Kriya over her. So he said, when she came to Shemayim, they didn't know what to do with her. So what do we do with this person? She lived her whole life as a guy. She never did teshuva. What do we do with her? They said, we're going to send her back. But the whole life, the opposite of what happened to her last time. Like this time, she had a husband who loved her. Now her husband's going to leave her and aguna. Her kids loved her. This time her children are going to leave her and want nothing to do with her. She had parents who loved her. The parents are going to want nothing to do with her and treat her terribly. This is going to be the midah k'neged midah situation of this person who made such bad choices. This is what she needs in order to have a rectification. So she said to her, she's like, what am I supposed to do? That's it. I'm for all eternity now. I'm stuck. He said, no. He said, I'm going to give you, he said, when a person lives with a guy, the Maisa, they have to, he said, really? Kabbalah, 1,800 consecutive fasts, basically. But that's too much today. So every Wednesday you'll fast. Every Wednesday you'll fast. She said 6 weeks later, she had a phone call in her house, and her kids called her up and they wanted to see her again. And then she started going for Shabbos to their houses and everything started changing. So that was like, I wrote this story, I never published it because I wrote it with all the details. It's the craziest story. And it's a great story, but some people, it triggers them because they say, oh, they look at things in their life. They're like, oh, so you're telling me I was basically a Russia last time around? I'm like, no, it's not telling you that. This was a crazy case. This was really a person who did everything wrong. The worst things you could do. No, most people aren't like that. Most people have specific things they need to fix, not everything. I wouldn't say, but it is something to think about. Like, it's not like we do what we want and we come to Shemayim and it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's a big deal. Like in Shemayim, they actually know what we did. There's a printout and we have to answer for what we did. And we have to keep that in mind. So I used to share it. Some places they do share it, some places they don't share it, depending on the reactions they get from different students. That's a crazy story I never published.
I figured it out. In your previous life, you were a proofreader. And now in your new life, you cannot read a book.
I told you some things need to stay in your head. I have to tell you that hearing these types of stories and hearing a lot of your stories that you've written, that I've heard in the past, to me, there's been a common theme. It's the understanding that everything happens for a reason. And just seeing that go through your life, I always tell people it's a blessing when you see something that happened to you that may have been perceived as not so good, but then you notice a few years later, perhaps, like, oh, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You had that happened in your life, like people,
yes,
right? You've had that so the more you read about it and the more you see that it's happening to people around you, I think the more real that concept becomes. And the idea of having a makubal also may not sit well with people.
I'm not into makubal, by the way.
Right. It's interesting. Right. But yet you're believing in the story.
Well, it makes sense.
Because it makes sense. Exactly.
It was a pretty main, like, as makubal go mainstream makubal.
Right.
I don't, in general, I discourage people from going to makubal. I say it's usually a scam arts usually.
Wow.
Yeah. Like Rabbi Yakov says, don't go to Kabbalah. Rabbi Yakov says, do not go to Kabbalah. So Rabbi Yakov says, don't go. You don't go because it's not about if you know how to read Kabbalah, because then you know how to manipulate people. It's about knowing how to learn Gemara. That's really the focus here. So people who learn Kabbalah, a lot of times they use that to scam people. They know how to read people. They don't manipulate people. And they could figure out, oh, you're going on a journey. And they know how to make you feel. And somebody just got into a fight with you. And they know how to play you that you give them money. Stay away from them.
Wow. It's true.
Wow. So you've had an impressive life journey. Looking back now, You ever envisioned?
We're just
100%.
The journey is we're not. It's not. We're not just starting, but we're in the middle.
But looking back, had you ever envisioned that you'd be where you are today, doing what you're doing, the impact that you're making?
I don't know if I envisioned this. I don't know, but I just kept on taking it one book at a time. Baruch Hashem, here we are. Eye on the goal.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, listen, I did not think in a million years. Every once in a while, I'd say, like, Nachman Seltzer, yeah, I went to Yeshiva with it. I didn't think I'd be doing this. I I come to Ramat Shemesh all the time. I don't think I've ever bumped into you once. So this is...
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. But this was awesome. This was a lot of fun. And I'm you know what? I can't say... By trade, I'm not an individual that speaks publicly. I don't like to speak publicly. But I found this enjoyable because I found this was very free-flowing. And I felt like that we were all being real and raw and speaking from the heart. And this was actually fun.
But people sometimes they tell me, I want to send you a list of questions before an interview. I say, don't. I don't like, just let's do it. Let's just do it. When it happens. My first interview on Country Gussie, my first album. So I spoke to him before I got on Country Gussie show, and he's like, I said, well, you'd ask me questions? He's like, don't worry, Nachman. I'm not going to ask you about the peace process. And I'm like, come on, ask me.
I was waiting for it.
Nobody can ask me a question about music. Give me some good questions.
Was that the first interview that you done?
One of my first interviews.
Yeah.
Was Country Gussie and
Wow.
The first album came out, and I said to Country Gussie years ago, I said, I have a theory. People don't even make CDs because they want to make CDs. They make CDs because they want to be on your show. That's the way to get on your show. So after they get, let me make a CD to get a Country Gussie show.
That does make sense. You were saying about books that you plan on writing, projects that you're working on. Were there any disappointments that you had?
Yes.
Before we go into closing, and how much time are we in so far already? So we have a couple of minutes left. But I just, the idea of the None of Your Business podcast and the reason why we started it really was for Ushi and I to decompress on a weekly basis and bring in a thought leader and help us grow in our world. So I always like to talk about challenges, and I talk about growth, and talk about topics to debate. I tried hooking you in before to see if there's anything that bothers you or that frustrates you, but it doesn't seem like that's a world that you live in because
listen, we all have things that that get us going.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we spoke long enough, there's things that they get me. That look, I get very passionate about things.
Yeah,
I do. You asked me about disappointments.
Yeah. I want to know in closing, how we can learn from someone like you who's written so many books that a book that couldn't be written that you thought was going to be written, and you listened to your rabbi. Kudos to you about that. By the way, I'm really impressed.
I think at the end of the day, it's like your Rebbe.
Yeah,
you got
100%. Not even a question.
That's why you have it.
That's the whole idea of doing that.
Otherwise, why have a Rebbe?
Yeah. The beauty of having a Rebbe, in what my opinion, and the reason why I tell people it's so important is because when they say not to do something, you feel good about it.
Right.
And you move on. It's sort of like he's with you on this, right?
I said to my Rebbe about this thing that I'm working on. I said, I need you to daven to Shwekey because I really want to be your partner.
Right.
I'm looking forward to be able to be a financial partner with you, Yeshiva. Please daven for me so I can do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to daven for you. You can be a big partner. So that's important to me. I could tell you disappointment. Okay. So there were 2 books I wanted to write. And I didn't get them. And I was asked by art school to write one of them, and then somehow somebody came and somehow managed to get it, and I didn't get it. I tried very hard to get those books, and I did not get them. And I was in both yeshivas.
What does that mean? You tried? I'm sorry.
I went to the wife of the person who passed away, the Rosh Yeshiva.
I see.
I said I knew the Rosh. I had a relationship with these people. I learned in the yeshiva. The other person also learned in one yeshiva. Sure. The yeshiva. I learned that yeshiva. The person who wrote the book didn't even learn in the yeshiva. And the person came to me for help because he didn't know the people in the yeshiva. I was like, and I gave him the information I had, but it was really disappointing. And then I said, that was I was trying. I'm going to people. I'm making a stylist. And then it got incredible. And I didn't do any stylist. I didn't try. And that book was one of the most popular Jewish books of all time. And I said, okay, I learned, you don't have to make yourself crazy. Later on, so there was a certain organization wanted me to do they told me to do a book. And then the president said to me, oh, yeah, but there's people, we don't want this guy. I want it. I said, I'm out. I'm not. He said, what do you mean you're out? I said, I'm out. If it's supposed to be for me, I'll get it. I don't have to fight for it. And if I'm not, then no matter what I do, I won't get it. And that project didn't happen because someone else who does something similar in Israel, I ended up writing books about that person. And I'm so much happier. And I saw that Nakuda. And today when people say, I'm like, I said this to a guy recently. He's like, we were talking about writing a book. And I'm like, listen, I don't have to fight for books. I don't have to fight. If it's supposed to happen, it will happen. If it's not supposed to happen, it's not going to happen no matter what I do. And I learned this. And I was disappointed, but I learned very clearly that you don't have to worry about these things. Everything has an address. I'll give you an example of a disappointment that led to big things. You guys want a good story?
Please.
Go for it.
So far, everything's been good.
First of all, it's really nice to be with you. And, we have good memories of your brother. But, back in our good friends, we could call him Doodle. Like other people, they have to call him
David.
Oh,
yes.
we're old friends.
Yes.
Yeah,
We can get away with it.
We, back the tower, that's the dodgeball in the backyard. So we can do that.
They actually asked each other, he said, you think he's still good at punchball?
Oh my gosh. We used to wait for dodgeball for recess and that. Oh, it was great. It was great. Oh, it was so much fun. Illumination dodgeball. Anyway, so I'm Rabbi Berkowitz. I wrote my first book and I had some free time and I wanted to do something. I needed a few hours of work, let's say. I'm looking for, I don't know what to do. Like, what am I going to do? So I had an idea. I'm like, Jonathan Roosevelt, Rabbi Yedison Rosenman, he's a Mishpacha columnist. So he had an office across from Center One back then. So I said, I'm gonna go to him. That was in my father-in-law's shul in Arnof. I know him from the shul. I'm gonna go to him and I'm gonna ask him if he needs someone to help him. Right? Maybe I can help him research. I don't know. So I get dressed and I'm all set and I go. Like, inconceivable he's gonna turn me down, right? No way. So I just show up and I ask the secretary, can I see it? Yeah, sure, go in. I go into him. His desk's piled high with papers he's a real Yale academic. He's brilliant. You know him at all? He's brilliant Yale academic, tons of books, papers everywhere. Anyways, I told him, I'm like, do you think it's possible maybe I can get a job? Work with you? He's like, very small operation. Me and my secretary, I don't need anyone. Okay. I walk out of his office. I'm like, all dressed up and nowhere to go. Now what? I said, I don't want to just give up. So I look at the directory of the company and there's a whole bunch of company names. And I'm saying, I'm going to take one company and I'm going to walk in there. And I'm going to ask them if they need someone. I don't know what they do. I'm going to walk in and see what happens.
Wow.
That's it. So I walked in. I took the elevator to the third floor and I just see this company and the glass doors open up and I walk inside. There's a secretary by the door sitting, table, and she was on the phone. So I just walked in. And I started walking around and I see people at computers and it's a nice vibe, a good atmosphere. People seem happy and, okay. I don't know what they do, but it looks like a nice place to be. So a guy comes over to me and he says to me, can I help you? I'm like, I hope so. He says, what do you like? I said, I'm looking for a job. He says, can you write? I'm like, yes. That's exactly what I can do. Why? What is this place? He goes, we outsourced for a certain newspaper in America. We put it together over here. I'm like, great. When can I start? He's like, whoa, slow down. Slow down, Tiger. I need a sample of your work. I'm like, fine. Okay, I'll bring you a sample. So I go home. I take a floppy disk. My first book was on a floppy disk. And I go the next day to a store. I didn't have a printer or anything. I wrote my first book by hand, actually. My first few books I wrote by hand and I had people typing them until I told myself how to type. Anyways, I go out, print out like 20 pages. I go back to him the next day. I bring it to him. I said, when are you going to get back to me? He said, I need like 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks to read 20 pages? Like you're in the newspaper business. Like, how do you guys get a newspaper out every week if you need, 2 weeks to read? He's like, no, 2 weeks. I'm like, okay. Anyways, 2 weeks go by, doesn't call me. I'm like, what's going on? He says, I didn't read it. I'm sorry. I'll get back to you. So he calls me back. Not long afterwards. I said, so you don't need 2 weeks. All right. Anyways, he's like, listen, I don't know. I'm like, what don't you know? He said, I don't know if you have what it takes. I'm like, well, how are you going to know if you don't give me a chance? He's like, yeah, maybe call Mishpacha, call Hamadia, maybe write true stories, I don't know. I don't think it's the right match. So I got off the phone. I was very upset at this man. Because as I said, it doesn't cost you any money to give me a chance. I'm young. I'm trying to get into the business. Give a person a chance. I learned from this. Give people a chance. Shimi Stauber, you know who that is? I don't know if you know who that is. He did a lot of stuff. Bob Perlowitz. People come. They're young. They're starting out. Because the person's 18, 19, 20 doesn't mean they're not good. They're good. They could be great. Give people a chance. We wouldn't hurt him to let me write an article. If you don't like it, don't use it. Don't pay me. Just give me a chance. He didn't give me a chance. I was so upset. I sat down at the table and I wrote my first short story. It was called Rebelli, actually. That's funny.
Wow.
And it was a story about when I was a kid and where I lived when I moved to Israel, and there was a guy there, American guy. There weren't a lot of Americans there. I became close to him, and then he became Chassidish. I moved away. He moved to Ashdod to become a Pittsburgh Chassid. Whole story. And how he changed, whatever, my story. I wrote the story. I'm like, okay, so now what? He said, call him a deal. I pick up the newspaper, and the newspaper says editorial offices. And I'm like, that sounds so professional. It sounds so scary. It's formal. Editorial offices. I'm like, my confidence was shot, right? I couldn't do it. So I didn't call. A few weeks later, an old friend of my parents comes to Israel, Rabbi Lyman, Zechar L'Vracha. He was a pioneer in the Jewish book world. He had a magazine called Light Magazine, and he translated books. He was a Kashva guy, a very special man. And Satmar was starting a newspaper in America called the American Jewish Monitor, and he was the editor. And he asked me, I don't even know why he asked me, do you have any pieces that you write? I said, yeah, I have a bunch. And I wrote a few pieces. Here, he read them. He said, I like it. I'll publish it. So the next 6 months, he's publishing my pieces, and it is American Jewish Monitor, and then it goes bankrupt. But by then, I'm already published. I already published a bunch of pieces, and I feel confident again. So I pick up the Hamadia. I call the number 538-2226.
It's not Hatzalah. You don't have to know it by heart.
I get through to the editorial. Sarah Thava Mizrahi. She's in charge of the magazine. I say, hello, my name is Nachman Seltzer. Are you looking for writers? She says, of course. I said, great. She says, have you written anything? I said, do you have the newspaper on the desk? She said, yeah. I said, turn it over. There's an ad for Targum Press. My book just came out. The Edge, it's over there. Great. I always start talking about what you're going to write. And eventually I sent her different samples. And finally, Shavuos, she took my first piece, went into Hamadia, and Baruch Hashem, things started cracking. And I was in London for Eish flew me, and I was going, at that time, I was by Bristol Berkowitz, Kiruv. I went to Eish for Yerushalayim Kippur to London. I was Chazan. I was looking at a job there in London. And I remember the story, The Angry Father came out. And every Rav said it on Yom Kippur, and it was a huge thing. And I bought Hamadia in England, and I saw the magazine letter to the editor. They're like, we love these stories from Nachman Seltzer, and I was like, pull it away. Like, look at this, it's happening, And the year goes by, and there's this new thing called a Nachman Seltzer story. It's a genre. A year and a half goes by. One Shabbos, I'm by a friend of mine. Shabbos morning for the Suda, me and my wife. And there's a couple sitting across the table. And the wife looks vaguely familiar. So after I might say, I look at her and I say, you look familiar. Where do I know you from? And she gets this sheepish look on her face. And she says, I'm the secretary at that company that you walked into, she said. Yes, we know we made a mistake. Maybe you'll come work for us now.
I felt good. Come on. I felt good.
But I learned from that a huge lesson in life. I learned that Kodesh Baruch Hu says, you're going to do good things in life. But your job is not to write PR pieces for a newspaper. Your job is to write true stories and Sfarim and Zera Shimshon, do that. And Hatzalah and Rabbi Grossman. And you have a different job. And that's not going to work. But you're doing your style. I'm going to come towards you. You're making it happen. Don't worry. As long as you do your style, Hashem will meet you. You don't have to worry. Hashem knows you're there. And there's a plan for every person. And that was such a big lesson for me. It's like, you don't have to worry. And Hashem said, that's not for you. But you'll see there'll be other things for you that maybe you'll enjoy a lot better, and you'll feel like you're doing way more productive for Klal Yisrael. And so that was amazing. A big, huge life.
I'm just going to edit one thing you said, and I'm going to say you've done great things, not good things. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Reb Nachman, Reb Naftali, This was an amazing episode. Thank you all. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, get involved. We love your feedback. I am so happy that leaving Israel and on my way to the airport, I'm able to catch you guys and have this episode that we are all doing great things together. And I just want to bless the two of you that you should continue to be inspirational to everyone around you, to your family, to your friends, to your associates, to people in your shul, in your community, like you're doing till now. Continue to do great things. Neil Zelman, you're amazing. I love you. Thank you for joining me today. Rabbi Nachman, you're amazing. I love you. Thank you for joining us today. Rabbi Citron, thank you so much for making this happen in your beautiful studio. Citron Studios, did I get it right? Citron Films, amazing. Such a beautiful studio. Anybody that needs anything done in Israel in terms of videography, promotions, or in the U.S., check them out. This was amazing. I just give you all a blessing that we should all continue to grow on our journey together. And Neil, I'll let you have the final word.
Usually we end off, these trips in a blast, but this time we ended off in a spritz.